Hey everybody. This is the first of the Monday intro live streams. So I've been doing these live streams from time to time, and we've decided actually, basically, if enough people show up, enough people hit us with super chat donations, to do an additional two of these a week. One on Monday, where I'll introduce briefly, we're talking, 5, 6, 7 minutes. Hey, Amanda, an idea, a thinker, a piece of history, sort of a little bit of a dose of what you get on the illicit histories and idea primers when you're a patron of the Michael Brooks Show. And on Thursdays, I'll do a sort of news roundup on both of them. I'll do a Q&A at the end, where if you hit me with a $5 or above super chat donation, I'll answer your questions. And in general, hit us with as many super chat donations as possible, because if we can, get another $100, $200 when we do these, that just helps sort of oil the ship, basically. And as always, become a patron, patreon.com/TMBS, patreon.com/TMBS. So I want to talk a little bit about CLR James. And CLR James is one of the most important Marxist and anti-colonialist thinkers of the 20th century. He was born in Trinidad in, I believe, 1901. He died in 1989. He was somebody who you could look at in kind of three phases. He had an upbringing in Trinidad, which had this really specific tension that he talked about very eloquently, where, primarily, there was still some French occupation, but the primarily British colonially occupied West Indies were colonially oppressed. People were second-class citizens. There was banning of political movements and other sort. I'll get to your question at the end. All of the obvious injustices of colonialism and imperialism. And then on the other hand, the British actually chose to give a lot of educational access to some students in the West Indies. There was some ability to sort of take advantage of some of what the best of the sort of British had to offer. So, CLR James came from that sort of tension. And he was a huge fan of Vanity Fair. He first read that when he was 9 years old. He remained a lifelong lover of Shakespeare, and had this very deep grounding in the classics, basically. And actually, that really reflected his very sort of globalized humanist view, which, of course, I think is a contrast, obviously, as a fundamentally anti-essentialist, anti-racist project, but then also someone who has a great critique of the kind of reductive vampire castle and endless sort of splitting and bifurcation that we see as a problem on the left today. As a young man, he went to the United Kingdom. He did the journey from Trinidad to the United Kingdom. He was a sports columnist who wrote about cricket and an aspiring novelist. But he would read Trotsky's account of the Russian Revolution and become a Marxist. And not just, he was brilliant. He's one of the more impressive, thoroughgoing intellects, really, of the 20th century. And so he reads his way through Trotsky, through Lenin, through Stalin, and then back through Marx. Then he realizes that the Stalinists are incredible liars about the sort of nature of revolution in the Soviet state. He comes up with this brilliant synthesis where he basically says that the incredible democratic accomplishment of the Russian Revolution, the 1917 revolution, that unbelievable outpouring of democratic possibility, and he talks about ending the feudal structure, the broad expansion of rights, and then defending the revolution, all of these incredible things, that sort of democratic opening could only be contained through the absolute vicious, violent savagery, the Murder Inc. state, he called it, of Stalin. So that was a dialectic he worked on. And then, of course, he's very famous for in 1938 writing Black Jacobins, which is one of the definitive, accounts of the Haitian Revolution. And of course, the Haitian Revolution is one of the most inspiring, important things that has ever happened. It was the only successful slave revolt in human history. The Haitians liberated themselves from the French. And that account is incredibly well written. I mean, some people would maybe criticize some of his accounts of Louverture. Maybe he was almost in some ways sort of trying to kind of reread a sort of perspective of modern revolutions into the Haitian Revolution, but it's an incredibly beautiful, powerful, gripping account. And the broader argument that, of course, the Haitian Revolution, which happened a couple years after the French Revolution, is the culmination of the French Revolution in a sense, if you understand it as just sort of broad categories of the struggle for human liberation. He gets deported from the United States. He had been to the United States after a stint in Britain, and then he ends up back in the United Kingdom, where he lives out the rest of his days through the 1980s, writing on dialectics, writing on history, writing on Marx, writing on culture, and having a very strong influence on the liberation of Africa. Kwame Nkrumah, who was the liberator of Ghana, and whose ideas on the neo-colonization after liberation is very influenced by CLR James. Although James never leaves, he left the Trotskyist movement, but remains, in his words, an independent Marxist. So he still, while being the quintessential, one of the most important anti-colonial, anti-racist intellectuals and activists, and some with a very sharp critique of the Trotskyists and Western Marxists for their blindness on many of these issues, he also resists and sharply critiques essentialist nationalist projects, because he still sees a Marxist global liberation project. He lives out to the 1980s. He keeps writing, as I said, on a variety of topics. And as he frequently quotes, going back to Marx, he says, "I really believe where we are is a choice between socialism or barbarism." And of course, that is precisely the time we're in now. It's socialism or barbarism. So you can read, for patrons, I did an introduction to him. CLR James is a Trinidadian Marxist who wrote Black Jacobins about the Haitian Revolution. I did an in-depth primer on him for patrons, which of course immediately go to patreon.com/TMBS. And you could also read his writings at the Marxist.org archives, and everybody should own a copy of Black Jacobins. All right, guys, if now is your time, if you want to hit, you should be hitting with Super Chat donations the whole time, but if you hit with a $5 or above Super Chat donation, I will answer some questions. If you guys have any questions now after some CLR James nutrition, let me know if you guys have anything. Tomorrow on the main show, Emma Vigeland is going to be here. I'm very excited to talk about a number of things, including the UK elections, the possible UK elections, the Israeli elections, and probably doing a lot of dunking on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, including much more of the Kamala Harris's dad character, which I like a lot. So any questions, guys? I'll just say quickly, the Working Families Party reveals themselves. You have the most pro-worker, consistent candidate in modern American history, and they chose to endorse him over somebody with a decent but a limited technocratic approach versus a fundamentally transformative democratic socialist one. It speaks volumes. It goes to the heart of their credibility, and basically, essentially, they're frankly cucks for Cuomo anyways. They haven't been particularly effective, but I will talk about that more on the show. I'm sure a lot of people will be triggered by that and disagree and blah, blah, blah. But as a structural matter, they have not. Sorry to say. That's the reality. Let me know. Give me your feedback, how you guys like this. Thank you, Joshua. Definitely let me know if you have a question. They endorsed Crowley over AOC. You know, the last thing I'll say about this, I'll elaborate this tomorrow. It's one thing for people to recognize that groups like the Third Way and others like that, I don't support Cyril Gomes. Cyril Gomes, I'll just say really briefly, Cyril Gomes is a center-left Brazilian politician. He has not been in solidarity with Lula, which is a non-starter for me. And more broadly, the fact that he did not campaign for Fernando Haddad in the second round, the fact that he took his ball and went home when Brazil was about to elect and did elect Bolsonaro is disgusting. So I don't have much time for Cyril Gomes. He's a very smart guy, some interesting things to say. Obviously, he's no Lula, and there isn't a structure around his party the way there is around PT, the Workers' Party, regardless of what you think of it. But I think what I was going to say is that, you know, groups like Third Way, it's very obvious that they are, you know, the enemy. They're corporate backed, they're right wing, they're trash, right? At the same time, would I be interested in doing this? Yes, I would love to go to Yale and do a Students for Bernie event. I will respond. Thank you, Brian. Would be happy to do that. Those groups are really clear. They support a corporate agenda, and they're going to be opposed to any effort for whether it's serious financial reform or anything else. Ruben's nonsense. I need to go. We're going to be doing a lot more East Asian history content. Ruben, I mean, as for Ruben, I don't know. He's going to join Glenn Beck. I don't know. The guy's a jackass. He's a goofball. But I do think there's a lot of groups, including, you know, a lot of like kind of institutional liberal groups that might be at, you know, I think they're staffed by plenty of good people. Some of them have decent politics, all the rest of it. It's fine. But they have been in a losing position for decades for structural reasons. And it's very revealing when they actually have an opportunity to go at something aggressively, actually elect a transformative president with a movement behind them like him, like Bernie Sanders, and they cop out. That's incredibly revealing. I would, of course I'd debate. I don't even know. You know what? Dave Rubin he's funny. It's still fun to make fun of, but I mean, we've done a job on him. I mean, he's done a job on himself. I mean, he's just so transparent in every way, shape, or form who he is and what he's about. You guys liking the? I don't know if you guys caught the what does Bernie or other candidate? Wait, why? I'm confused by that question. Why doesn't Bernie or other candidates point out that the TV hosts would point? I don't know. I don't know if they're ready to make it that visceral with the TV hosts themselves. But Bernie goes right up to that line when he talks about the corporate advertising at the debates. Do you guys enjoy the Kamala Harris's dad impression? And how many do you guys need to have a reminder of how Kamala Harris annoyed her dad? And by the way, who he is. Kamala Harris's dad is a very important Marxist economist. And when Kamala Harris did her thing on the Breakfast Club where she was just like, yeah, of course I'm cool with weed. I'm Jamaican. Come on. She did this totally hacky thing, which of course flew in the face of her record. At some point, would you ever consider covering... Oh, I was just talking about... This is a question about Mayor Pete. I know less about Mayor Pete's dad. I think, yes, Iran I'm definitely covering tomorrow for sure. But in Kamala's case, her dad basically said to a Jamaican news site, it was reported like it was essentialist politics, it was disrespectful to Jamaicans. I mean, he was really pissed about her hacky weed material. Which if you have, you know, any kind of interaction with middle-class folks from places like Jamaica, would not surprise you that he would not be super into the hacky weed material. But yeah, I want a lot more of that. Like, my daughter embarrassed me. She a representative of Babylon system. I'm gonna watch more Michael Manley tapes to refine that. It's like, Bernie or bust. Yeah, Kamala, very funny. It's a very funny comedic interaction. I did see T.I. I think we'll cover that tomorrow. Anything else, guys? Let me know what you think of this. New format. We're going to be doing these Monday and Thursday. The book is finished and submitted. It's being edited now. Will be out in the winter. I love Killer Mike. Killer Mike is a fucking genius. Of course I will, Marcos. Yes. So yeah. So basically, yeah, one on Monday, one on Thursday. Monday will usually try to be a little bit like this. Introduce you to something, ooh, Dollar Federer. That is so hard. I really honestly love them both, but I guess Federer. I have had C. Derek Varn on for patrons, and C. Derek Varn is brilliant. Thursday will be a news roundup with an even heavier emphasis on your questions. Emma Vigeland tomorrow. Get your tickets to the Philly Live show. Excited for all of it. I appreciate all of you guys. Become a patron, patreon.com/TMBS. I appreciate all of you guys. Peace and love. Peace and love.